while he was living here.
I don't really care, Margaret. I don't want that person in my country, and I think most Americans agree with me.
Welcome to GBN Originals. I'm Adam Cherry. Now, Vice President JD Vance, week into the job, is already clashing with the media. In fact, he sat down recently with CBS News' Margaret Brennan on Face the Nation over the weekend, and he's talking about the Trump administration's immigration policy. So let's break this down and talk about what it means and why he got into such a fierce debate just days into his new job. Now, in a tense face-off that has already captured everyone's attention over the weekend, JD Vance didn't mince his words when defending the administration's decision to suspend the Afghan Refugee Program. Now, the interview aired on Sunday, and it very quickly became a battleground discussion over national security and America's obligation to its allies. Let's take a look at the moment that has got everybody talking. Take a look at this.
No, and that was a very particular case. It wasn't clear if he was radicalized when he got here or while he was living here.
I don't really care, Margaret. I don't want that person in my country, and I think most Americans agree with me.
Ooh, I don't really care, Margaret. I don't want that person in my country, and I think most Americans agree with me. Now, those are the words that really kick things off here. Let's just give this a little bit of context. I've only played you a short segment there, but the clash began when Margaret Brennan pressed Vance on Trump's executive order suspending refugee resettlement operations. She argued that the decision left thousands of Afghans, some of whom had worked with the US government, stranded at airports. And she reminded Vance of his previous words, which were, "I don't think we should abandon anybody who's been properly vetted and helped us." But Vance was quick to challenge the notion of proper vetting. He said, "Well, Margaret, I don't agree that all these immigrants or all these refugees have been properly vetted." And he actually cited a recent case where allegedly vetted individuals were later implicated in planning terrorist attacks on US soil. I mean, this is just bread and butter stuff for the MAGA Republicans. They talk about this all the time. I'd argue as part of this, the reason why he's sitting where he's sitting and why Trump is back in the White House. He says his primary concern is the safety of American citizens. This is JD Vance talking again. "My primary concern as Vice President, Margaret, is to look after the American people." He said the government cannot risk national security by admitting potentially unvetted individuals into the country. Now, Brennan, not necessarily backing down herself, because she said they are vetted, these people are vetted, and the debate reached its boiling point when Vance referenced a specific case, which was an Afghan national in Oklahoma being accused of planning a terrorist attack in October 2023. Despite undergoing multiple vetting processes, the individual had been flagged as a threat. So Vance said, "I don't want my children to share a neighborhood with people who are not properly vetted. And because I don't want it for my kids, I'm not going to force any other American citizens' kids to do that either." Now, while Brennan was trying to contextualize it and suggested it might be an isolated incident, here's the line that is getting all the attention on social media: "I really don't care. I don't want that person in my country." If this exchange had happened 8 years ago, I think the reaction would have been slightly different. I think it would have been along traditional political lines, everyone on the left saying, "This is terrible, he clearly is in the wrong," and everyone on the right saying, "I pretty much agree." But now, I actually think Vance might be onto something here in terms of capturing the political mood. As I said, there's a reason he's sitting in that chair, and immigration is one of the main components, one of the main reasons that they won that election. So now when Brennan asks a question like that and sort of poses it as a moral question, the Americans hear it and think, we've seen this all before. There's now a consensus that immigration is too high and these people need to be sent back. Supporters argue it's a necessary measure to protect American citizens. Obviously, critics contend that it abandons allies and it contradicts America's values as a nation of immigrants, which is something that Brennan herself said. So let's take a look at the implications of this a little bit more specifically. First of all, national security. The administration, and Vance in that clip, argues that the current vetting process is insufficient to guarantee the safety of American citizens. They point to cases where individuals who had passed previous screenings were later found to have terrorist connections, and Vance made that specific point about that this incident in Oklahoma in October 2023. It's a huge concern. Security is a massive problem. Of course, there's also the humanitarian considerations. You've got the critics of the policy arguing that it goes against America's long-standing tradition of providing refuge to those fleeing persecution and conflict. By the way, Margaret Brennan also pointed out that this is a country founded on immigrants. And if you take a look at what JD Vance had to say about that, that's quite revealing as well. Take a look at this.
Well, this is a country founded by immigrants.
Well, this is a country founded by... This is a very unique country, and it was founded by some immigrants and some settlers. But just because we were founded by immigrants doesn't mean that 240 years later that we have to have the dumbest immigration policy in the world. No country says that temporary visitors, their children, will be given complete access to the benefits and blessings of American citizenship. America should actually look out for the interests of our citizens first.
Again, Vance was he's not having any of it, was he? What a combative interview. Good fun. Anyway, there are obviously going to be diplomatic repercussions here because the decision to suspend the refugee program may strain relationships with allies who have been counting on US support for their citizens who assisted American forces. But I don't think, frankly, the White House is particularly concerned about that. Now, controversy doesn't end there, of course. This is the Trump presidency, so someone's always squawking. Vance also defended President Trump's executive order aimed at ending birthright citizenship for children of illegal immigrants, and also people who arrive here on vacation, have a baby, and then immediately their child is an American citizen. That's ending, or it should be, provided this executive order passes through. Vance also argued that no other country grants citizenship to children of temporary visitors in this way, questioning why the US should be an exception. Now, this statement, it opens up a whole other can of worms in the immigration debate, because is that executive order constitutional? The 14th Amendment states that all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States. So the administration's attempt to end birthright citizenship will almost inevitably lead to legal challenge. Already you've seen this with some of his other executive orders, so don't be surprised if it happens again. Let's also talk about the historical context of this, because the concept of birthright citizenship has been a cornerstone of American immigration policy for over 150 years. I mean, as we just heard there, it's in the Constitution. So changing this would represent a huge shift in how the US defines citizenship. Practically, of course, if implemented, the policy could also create a case of stateless individuals born on US soil. What happens to them? That raises a whole other load of legal and ethical questions. I'm sure we'll have plenty to hear about that when this executive order takes effect. There's also the international comparisons. While Vance is claiming that no other country grants citizenship to children of temporary visitors, actually several nations, including Canada and in South America, have similar, not identical, but similar birthright citizenship policies. Again, that may change in future. It does feel like the prevailing attitude, the prevailing winds on this topic, on immigration, are changing, not just in the US, in the UK, but also worldwide. Now, the heated exchange between Vance and Brennan highlights the ongoing divisions in America over immigration, not just in politics, but in the media and across the country as well. It raises fundamental questions about the balance between national security and humanitarian obligations, although, again, it does feel like the winds are blowing in a specific direction on this. Highlights the effectiveness of current vetting procedures and even the very nature of American identity. So plenty of questions on how this will affect America's global standing in its relationship with their allies, the long-term economic impact of these restrictions, and how these new policies will change the demographic makeup of the US in the coming decades. Also the question, can a balance be struck between national security concerns and America's tradition of welcoming immigrants? It's obviously the policy of the Trump administration that just because we've had a certain attitude before doesn't mean it must continue. Look, one thing is for certain, this debate is far from over. We're only, 7 days into this administration, and we've already had a trade war and a huge fight over immigration. So, as always, we'll be bringing you the latest here at GBN Originals as this story and others progress. We'll bring you all the latest developments and in-depth analysis. But I'm interested, what are your thoughts on Vice President Vance's statements? Do you agree with the administration's stance on refugee admissions and immigration policy? Are they making the right call? Let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell to stay up to date with all our latest content.